Welcome to NCRT Made Easy. In the previous videos, we have completed the chapter Variations in Psychological Attributes, and I've made a whole playlist for this. So if you have any queries related to any particular topic or the whole chapter, you can go through the whole playlist, and there are thumbnail wise chapter written on it. So you can already check on the thumbnail which chapter and which topic you need to see again. Besides, I've also made Instagram channel in which you can find the note pictures. So if you want to review before exam, you can check them. And they're all summarized version of the entire NCRT textbook as well as some parts of the guidebook. And if you have any special requests for the guidebook questions, you can ask. I may make a video on those guide questions, or else I plan on sending it at the end of all chapters for board preparation. Next, upcoming playlists and videos is going to be on the chapter Self Personality and then forward on. And please do comment down on what topic your school is at right now so I can move at a faster pace. For better clarification of each chapter, you will need to revise the whole NCRT, understand the whole NCRT, be able to make your own answers according to different subjective questions by practicing the exercise questions, followed by the guide questions for better clarification for answering board exam and the school exams, acing it. And the 5 PYQs are very, very important. They may be repeated questions in exams, then SQP. Hopefully, you get a whole 100% in a theory exam like psychology. Next, this is the contents in the chapter. The subtopics under the chapter, I've separated them all and written them here. We'll be starting with introduction and let's see how far we can go in this video. In the thumbnail, you'll already be seeing what all topics I've been covering in this video. So stay tuned. Let's go on the journey of introduction. So basically, what is self and personality? The study of self and personality helps us understand not only who we are, but also our uniqueness as well as our similarities with others. By understanding self and personality, we can understand our own as well as others' behaviors in diverse settings. So, now we come to the main point, what is self and what is personality? Self and personality refer to the characteristic ways in which we define our existence. Okay, so let's write the first point, which is self and personality refer to ways in which we define our existence. They also refer to the ways in which our experiences are organized and show up in our behavior. From common observation, we know that different people hold different ideas about themselves. These ideas represent the self of a person. Okay, so different people have different ideas about themselves. These ideas represent the self of that person. We also know that different people behave in different ways in a given situation, but the behavior of a particular person from one situation to another generally remains fairly stable. Such a stable, relatable pattern of behavior represents the personality of that person. So, what is self? Self is the ideas or beliefs of that person, how that person represents themselves. Then comes personality. Personality is how that person behaves. There is relatively stable behavior to situations. That is called personality, which people know that person by. So, different people possess different personalities. Now, we're going to learn the concept of self, which is self awareness, self efficacy, and all of that we're going to be describing. Next, we'll also know about identities in this topic. So, concept of self. As a child grows older, the idea of self emerges and its formation begins. Parents, friends, teachers, and other significant people play a vital role in shaping a child's ideas about themselves. Our interaction with other people, our experiences, and meanings we give to them serve as the basis of our self. So, the most important thing first we should mention is our interaction with people. Write it down because psychology you may understand, but writing is the most important part. How you frame your sentences is the point where you get marks or you lose the mark. So there are some specific way of writing psychology answers which should be written. So because of that, you need prior practice. Our interactions with other people, experiences, our experiences, um, and the meaning we give to them, the meaning we give to them serve as the basis of ourself. Serve as the basis of our self. So if they ask what is self, you write this. Alright. Then the structure of self is modifiable in the light of our own experiences. What do we write in addition to this? The structure of self is modifiable in light of our experiences. Very understandable, very relatable as well. Now, under self comes identities, how we identify ourselves. There are two types of identity. One is personal identity and the other is social identity. As you can already understand by the names, but we'll still have to define it because these questions do come. Personal identity first. So, as the name refers, it is the attributes of a person that makes him or her different from others. So, makes him or her different from others. What does it mean? It can be their name, it can be their name, it can be their qualities, it can be their qualities, it can also be their potentialities or capabilities. That's right, capabilities. It can be their capabilities, it can be their beliefs or um, their talents, anything. So we'll stop here. That is their personal identity, something that separates them from the others, right? So my name is this. Only this is my name. There may be other people in the room with this name, but this is my name. That's me different from that person. Then next, qualities. My qualities and that person with the same name as mine will not be the same. That is me different from that person. So anything that differs you from the other person is your personal identity, how you want to be known or how you are known to yourself. Next comes social identity, how people know you. This is how you are to yourself or how you are different personally. This is how you are different socially, how you behave with others or your personality way. So these are the aspects that link him or her to a social or cultural group. It can be group, any groups, social related. So that links them to other. Like I am a feminist. I am um, a true leader. I am a good public speaker. So you define yourself as a particular group. So how do you see yourself socially? Okay, and then it can be someone's religion, like they are Hindu or Muslim or Christian or anything. It can be their religion, it can be your the way that you represent yourself mentally, and then it can be how people know you as your personality. It can be anything. Okay, so that's all we end identities with. Next we have what is self as a definition. Okay, really important. This is how we understand what is self. But if they ask define self, then what's the perfect answer for this? Self refers, these kind of answers, when they say define self, there is actually an absolute answer given in the NCRT, and you must follow that answer to get the best scores. Self refers to the totality. So these are the terms you need to use in psychology. Okay. Self refers to the totality of an individual's conscious conscious experiences, ideas, thoughts, feelings that regard to herself or himself, feelings or their experiences and ideas at both, their experiences at both social and personal levels. Alright, so this is all about the concept of self. Next, we'll go to the next topic, which is self as a subject and self as an object. So, self can be seen as a subject, self can be seen as an object. So, when self, we're all discussing about self, so I'm making it here self as a subject. So, if you return to your friends' descriptions, you will find that they have described themselves either as an entity that does something, like I'm a dancer, I'm a singer, or as an entity on which something is done. I am one who gets easily hurt. I am an overthinker. I easily fall for people. Anything. So, anything that describes them in regard to something is when they are used as object, and subject means you're speaking about yourself, like I'm a dancer, I'm a singer, how you identify yourself. So there's two things: self as a subject and self as an object. All right, what comes under this? In subject, it is someone who does something, who does something, and someone on whom effect takes place. All right, so example I've already given you. um, Other than that, if you know who you are the knower. And if you have something that can be known, that is something else. So if I when you say I know who I am, the self is being described as knower, as well as something that can be known. So a self can be a knower and can be a known. As a subject, the actor, the self actively engages in the process of knowing itself. As an object, consequence, the subject gets observed and comes to be known. So in subject, you are the knower. You know it. You're the actor. Got it? And then as an object, you are the known. You are known, or you're the consequence. Alright? So the self gets observed. In this, the self gets observed and comes to be known. And in this, the self engages in doing itself and knowing what it is. This dual status of self should always be kept in mind. Alright, now we'll go to kinds of self. Now to kinds of self. There are several kinds of selves. They are formed as a result of our interaction with our physical and sociocultural events or environments. The first element of self that we'll find is when a newborn child cries for milk when it's hungry. Although this cry is based on reflex, this later on leads to development of awareness that I am hungry. This biological self, in the context of sociocultural awareness, this modifies itself. While you may be hungry for chocolate, an Eskimo may not. So the main distinction over here again is just like identities, there's types of self also, which is personal self and social self. Alright. Now, under this, the biological self was where we know whether we are hungry or what we're feeling. That's biological self, but that doesn't come under types of self. Okay, so the personal self leads to orientation in which one primarily feels concerned about themselves, right? Like personal freedom. What comes in this personal freedom? Then comes responsibility. Then comes achievement, comforts. Alright, and social self emerges in relation to others, like cooperation, unity, affiliation, and then there is sacrifice, and then there is support or sharing. Let's say sharing or okay, support. Alright, so this self values family and social relationships. Hence, it is also referred to as familial, or it's also called familial or relation self. Relational self. Relational self. Familial or relational self or social self. So, personal self is just called personal self, but social self has two names. Either they can say what comes under familiar or relational self, or they can say what is social self, what comes under it. So you can say it is something that comes under the influence of others, or it comes with the relation of others, and then you can write these points. All right, now that was it for kinds of self, concept of self. Now we're going to cognitive and behavioral aspects of self. In this comes the self concept, self esteem, self efficacy, all that definition, and that will be the end of this video. Then in the next video, we'll be going to culture and self. Now, next topic, which is the types of self or the cognitive and behavioral aspects of self. So, under these aspects, we'll be finding four, like self concept, self esteem, self efficacy, and self regulation. Again, self regulation will be broken into three concepts. So, let's begin. The first one is going to be self concept. These usually comes as one concept questions like what is self concept, or it may come as MCQ also. Which one is self concept, or they'll give you a case study and they'll ask whether this comes under self concept, self esteem, self efficacy. So you need to know the meaning of each of these. But they usually ask as one topic like what is self concept, what is self efficacy, separately. All right, and then now we're completely finding it. The way we perceive ourselves, right? Let's write and speak. The way we perceive ourselves and ideas about our competencies, which means capabilities, competencies and attributes is called self concept, right? At a very general level, it is that okay, in general level, this view of oneself is overall either positive or negative. All right, at more specific level, at a more specific level, it can be a very positive view of his athletic bravery, of let's say this very positive view about something, but a very or just negative view of something else. Dot, dot, dot. At an even more specific level, as it goes, one may have positive self-concept about one's reading ability, example, but a negative one about one's mathematical skills. So let's say this is academia or academic talents or such, and this may be someone's athletic bravery or something. Athletic, okay, athletic bravery or something. So very positive view of athletic bravery, but negative view of academic. But even more specific, it can be a positive view of math, but a negative view of English, or a very negative view of math, but a very positive view of English. So, at a very specific level, it may be this. Self concept means how much you know yourself. Alright? That's the basis. Finding out what an individual's self concept is not easy. The most frequently used method involves asking the person about himself or herself. So, when therapists want to know about self concept of someone, it's not easy to find. The best and the most preferable way is to ask them to speak about themselves. Alright? Going to the next topic, which is self esteem. Alright, self esteem. It is an important aspect of ourselves. As person, we always make some adjustments or judgments about our own value or worth. So, this is the judgment of our own value and worth, right? So, this value judgment of a person about himself or herself is called self esteem. This value is called self esteem. It's almost like what we believe we can do, our capabilities, right? Next, some people have high self esteem whereas others may have low self esteem. In order to assess self esteem, we present a variety of statements to a person and ask him or her to indicate the extent in those statements are true or not for him. So, whether it is right or wrong, like, are you confident? Are you very nervous? Are you a good speaker? Are you a bad speaker? So your judgment about you in different aspects is clear in that way. If you think in what you are good at, what you're bad at, okay. Studies indicate that by the age of 6 or 7, children form self-esteem at least in 4 areas. So basic idea: around 6 or 7 years old, children form self-esteem in 4 areas, right? It can be academic competence. Academic, it's usually academic competence, social competence, social competence, then physical or athletic competence, and then physical appearance. Okay, so athletic competence, anything. So there are four particular things that children up to 6 or 7 year old are usually exposed to. When they're exposed to the environment, first thing they do to build self-esteem in is academic competence, social competence, how well they are with others, how bad they are with others, physical, how they look, how they feel about themselves looking, athletic, how strong or weak they feel they are. So these are the 4 areas where they build self-esteem according to studies. This may come as a question at around which age, and it may come as an MCQ, which of these. There may be many options, and you might find one of these over there. You need to circle that or appear for that. All right. Next, this self-evaluation about a person helps us know the psychological image of ourselves. This is known as the overall sense of self-esteem. Self-esteem shows a strong relationship. It shows strong relationship of ourself with our everyday behavior. Strong relationship with ourselves. Alright? On the other hand, children with children with low esteem may be found to display anxiety, depression, and increasing antisocial behaviors. Studies have shown that warm and positive parenting helps the student or the child to develop high self esteem. That is, they know that they are accepted as competent and worthwhile. Children whose parents help them make decisions for them, even when they do not need assistance, often suffer from lower self esteem. This is something to keep in mind when it comes to case studies, that what happens to life outcomes, or the outcomes are controlled by luck or fate or other situational factors. Person who believes that he or she has the ability or behaviors required by a particular situation demonstrate high self-efficacy. So this is how they believe they can themselves control their life outcomes. Alright, so, and we have already seen how high self efficacy is there when you believe you can do it. You have the ability in a particular situation. The notion of self efficacy is based on Bandura's social learning theory. Okay, based on Bandura's social learning theory. Alright, may or may not come as a question. Bandura's initial studies show that children and adults learn behavior by observing and imitating others. People's expectations of mastery or achievement and their convictions about their own effectiveness also determine the acts of behavior in which they would engage, as also the amount of risk they would undertake. A strong sense of self-efficacy allows people to select, influence, and even construct the circumstances of their own life. They are also less fearful. Self-efficacy can be developed, and in strong senses of self-efficacy, what happens? They can select, influence, construct their consequences, and then they are less fearful. It may come as a question: what is the characteristics of a strong sense of self-efficacy in a person? Then this may be the question. This may be the answer. And people with high self-efficacy can be found to stop smoking, according to studies, the moment they decide to do so. So they have strong belief on themselves. So whenever they decide on something, they can do it. When you believe in something, you can do that thing, right? So your mind controls half of the behavior you do. Whether you can, whether you can't, is actually depending on your mindset of whether you can or whether you can't. Alright, next comes self-regulation, the fourth one, but this is also divided to four parts, or three parts. Self-regulation, pretty much easy. What does regulation mean? Controlling how we do it. Now that comes in three ways. First is self-control. We'll be learning that, and then we're going to learn self-instruction. You can instruct yourself. And then comes self-reinforcement. In grade 11, we've learned what is reinforcement. Alright, let's see if we can make it as short as possible to write it down over here. Alright, self-regulation, first let's define this, refers to ability to organize or monitor okay, and or monitor our own behavior. So, this is it. People who are able to change their behavior according to the demands of the external environment are high on self monitoring. So, um, can change their behavior, can change their behavior on demands. Okay, so they're high on self monitoring. Then that becomes someone's willpower at times. As human beings, we can control our behavior the way we want. We often decide to delay or defer the satisfaction of certain needs. Learning to delay or defer the direction of gratification of needs is always called self control. So, what is self control? Learning to delay or defer the gratification of needs. Gratification of needs is self control. Controlling yourself on the time to gratify your need. Learning to control yourself and not be in a hurry for that need. Alright? That comes in self control. They help in fulfillment of long term goals. Help in long term goals. Alright? Next, we go to observation of our own behaviors is one of them to control. Okay, self instruction. Next one comes self instruction. It is another important technique. We often instruct ourselves to do something and behave the way we want. So, instruct ourselves to behave the way we want. Way we want. We want to look professional, we have to be professional. Be able to instruct yourself that you need to be professional, you need to be straightforward, you need to say no when you cannot. So you need to be open to yourself and instruct yourself what you should not to achieve your goal. Right? That's self instruction. That is very effective in self regulation. Next comes self reinforcement, the third technique, which involves rewarding behaviors that have pleasant behaviors that have pleasant outcomes. Outcomes. What is reinforcement? To make something more effective. So if you have a positive reinforcement, you make it uh, give it positive consequences, make yourself feel good on it, so that when you do that kind of work again, you feel the motivation to do it because you've done it before, you felt it rewardful. So rewarding behaviors that have pleasant outcomes is self-reinforcement. So you must give time to yourself, like you may go to see a movie with friends if you've done well in examination, etc. These techniques have been tried out and found quite effective with respect to self-regulation and self-control. Next, we are going to culture and self. Now we are in the last topic that's related to self, and this is the last topic for this video. In the next video, we'll be studying personality. Alright, so now we're going to see culture, the interlink between culture and self. We're going to see what is the self seen as in Western way and what is the self seen as in the Asian view. Alright, several aspects of self seem to be linked to the characteristic features of culture. Analysis of self carried out in Indian cultural context or Asian cultural context reveals a number of important features that are distinct from those in Western culture. The most important distinction between Indian and Western is the way the boundary is drawn between self and other. We're gonna see in aspects of Western and Asian or Indian. Alright, so the is main distinction is boundary between self and others. Alright, so that's the main distinction. In the Western view, in the Western view, the boundary appears to be relatively fixed. It's a fixed boundary. Alright? That means there's a proper distinction. Okay? In the Indian view, it is shifting nature. It includes the others mostly. So, in the Asian, it is shifting boundary. Shifting, that is, includes others in certain aspects and sometimes not. Alright. Now, our self at one moment of time expands to fuse with cosmos or includes the others. Next, uh, and the next moment, it seems to be completely withdrawn from it and focused fully on individual. That's the Asian view. So sometimes it feels to be focusing on others, people around us, but sometimes it is completely withdrawn from it, just us, individual self, personal needs and goals. The Western view holds clear dichotomies between self and other. Clear dichotomies, or you can write distinction between self and others, right? Subjective and objective, man and nature. The Indian views do not make such dichotomies. In the Western views, the culture and group exist as two different entities. They are two different entities. Entities. Alright? So, the groups and self exist as two different structures, different boundaries. But in Indian culture, self is generally not separated from one's group. Self is not separate from others. Separate from others. Alright? So both remain in state of harmonious coexistence. That is, there is coexistence. Alright? In the Western culture, on the other hand, they often remain at distance. This is why many Western cultures are characterized as individualistic, whereas many Asian cultures are referred as collectivistic. So, this is a very important point. This is individualistic. Individualistic. Basically, the whole thing in this point. Individualistic, and this is collectivistic. Alright? These 2 points are the most important, the black one, individualistic and collectivistic. If you remember that, you can answer it all. And there's some joints related to it, which I can also show. So in the Western perspective, it is this. Let's say this is the individual and this is the group. Alright? The distance. The distance. The distance. There's distance. Alright? They can never merge. But in the Western way, in the Asian way, it is, this is a circle you see, okay, that is the group, and this is the circle you see. In the group, this is the individual, merged, one circle. I include you in this, you include me in this, that kind of situation. So individual and group, which is why uh, anything an individual does is characterized and viewed by the society or the group or others, because there is an interlink between the others. But in here, it's like self goals, personal goals alone. Others, social behavior, personal, professionalism, everything is separate. Alright, so this is Asian and this is Western. That is the end of this video. coming to the next video, which is going to be about personality, concept of personality, structures of personality, and etc. See you in the next video. Till then, study well.